Well, the Lions are now 5-1. They've had 3 really good road wins, obviously at Arrowhead, at Lambeau, and now down in Tampa Bay. TJ, you were down there, and I got to let's start with this. You were on a Super Bowl championship team, and I'm not sitting here going to say, hey, they're a Super Bowl contender, but right now they are tied through 6 games with the best record in the NFL with 4 other teams. Now that you've seen them on the road, you've seen them at home, do you think they have a shot at being a Super Bowl contender?
I do. 100% I do. And you kind of felt that way a little bit, throughout the first couple games. I wasn't really sure, hey, it's still early in the season. Let's see how they continue to play,
It's a nice sample size now.
Good sample size. I mean, you're third of the way through the season now, 5-1. Yes, I do think this is pretty damn close to being a complete team. And you sit there and say, man, I don't even know if we've seen the best of this team yet, right? I mean, even against Tampa Bay, you're looking in the injury report. You're missing some key guys. You're missing a starting guard, running back. Montgomery goes out, in the first half of that game. You're missing him for a while. You're missing Brian Branch, who arguably is one of your best players on defense.
Yeah.
It's like, it reminds me of like playing the Oregon Trail when you were a kid, and like if you break a leg or get sick, you just see a man, like this train ain't stopping for anybody.
Yeah.
We got shit to do. We got to move on. And that's kind of the attitude that this team has is nothing stopping them, man. Like, you're just in our way. That's it. Like, and even yesterday after the game, you went in the locker room and trying to feel out the vibe, and it wasn't like some crazy celebration. Of course, everybody, you're happy to get a win in the NFL, but it's almost like they're expecting to do this now. And that to me is a huge difference than what we've seen from this team in the past. I mean, wins last year were, every win was the best win we ever had, right? And you're celebrating and you're enjoying it, which you should. But this year, something's different. It's almost like, just went out there, took care of business, punched the time card, and now we're going home, right? That's kind of the attitude I get about it. And it's admirable, man. It's fun to watch. It's fun to see the players interact and the coaches interact, and just, the physical, the fast, the violence that they play with, the togetherness that they play with. Even after Amon-Ra's touchdown there, on that 3rd and long, you look over at the sideline and Amon-Ra just kind of jogs over by himself, and everybody else is mauling Craig Reynolds for throwing the block to spring it, right? And you just look at the chemistry that this team has, man. You feel like something special there. And I do not hesitate at all to think that they are one of the best teams in the NFL right now, 6 games into this season. They certainly are, and they've been doing it a number of different ways. Yesterday was kind of that rough and tumble game where it's going to be, we're going to be hard pressed to find some explosive runs. The run game really wasn't great at all. Okay, let's pick up the passing game, right? Yeah. Goff goes out and throws for 340 and a couple touchdowns. And situationally, that's how you win games in this league against good opponents. You win the turnover battle. You win the 3rd down battle. You win the red zone battle. Those are all little things that added up in that game, ultimately made the difference. But this defense, I firmly believe now that they're legit. I think there was still a part of me, even maybe last week, that looks at them and said, they're probably overachieving a little bit, right? Like, I don't know if this is sustainable. I think I kind of firmly believe now that this is a legit defense. Just the way that they're playing, and like I said, the violence that they play with. That's something that you hear somebody say violent at least once after every game. And yesterday certainly was no different. And that's, probably the reason why they won that game, because of defense, how they played.
Not a lot of plays pull me off the couch, but and I know your perspective was different because you were right there. You saw Craig Reynolds and that block happen right in front of you.
Yeah.
But on TV, he came out of nowhere and totally decleated somebody, which allowed Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know if Amon-Ra St. Brown makes a touchdown if that block doesn't happen. In fact, it's probably likely that he doesn't.
No.
But the blur that was him coming across the screen, decleating a player to get in the end zone, like, those are all of the different things that this team is doing for guys to step up. And it's the depth of talent on this roster, but it's also the culture that's been built in the Lions facility where, hey, you may not even be on the active roster right now. And Dan has talked about this before. We've kept every guy on the vet squad or the practice squad for a reason. Julian Okwara, they put him on on IR for the first 4 games. One, because he was hurt, but also they wanted to keep him for a reason. Now, all of a sudden, he's got a sack yesterday. He's got a pass deflected, up front. And Craig Reynolds is of that same make where when they're called upon, they're ready to go. And here's the other thing. When Bugs was down for those first 2 games, I know we heard a little bit. It was more about the frustration for him, but it wasn't bitching at the coaches, wasn't bitching at his teammates. This team is tight from top to bottom.
And there doesn't seem like there's any selfishness anywhere across the board, right? I don't think that you look at this team and say, oh, yeah, this guy's kind of a diva, or yeah, this guy's throwing a hissy fit because he's not getting the ball. Like, I don't
even
see
J-Mo after his touchdown was different than what we saw last year.
Yeah, and a guy like J-Mo, I'm glad you mentioned him because he's doing the little things right. I mean, he's blocking, right? He's getting active in the run game. He's showing his teammates and his coaches that, he's not just a gadgety player that, hey, I just want to catch long balls and go sit on the bench and celebrate. I want to be a complete player, and I want to go prove that to everybody. I mean, we saw it, last week. I mean, a couple big runs that Montgomery had in that Carolina game. J-Mo's out there tossing DBs around and creating holes, and those little things add up. They make a difference. And when you look at this team right now through 6 games, I was thinking about this a little bit yesterday. They have an identity. Like they do. They have a firm identity of who they are. And I think that's a tough, physical, fast football team, a team that just doesn't give a who they're playing. You're in our way. We're going to get you out of our way, right? That's kind of their identity right now. And I look around the league and I say, how many teams can truly say they have an identity? I don't think there's many right now. I mean, I think you look at Miami and say their identity is they're explosive as hell on offense, right?
They're fast.
They're fast as shit. They got explosive plays all over the board. You look at a team like Philly. They lost yesterday to the Jets, right? Jalen Hurts, 3 turnovers, 1 to finish the game, right? 1 late in the game that set up the winning score for the Jets. Do they really have an identity right now of where they were last year? I don't think so. I mean, San Fran, I know, they kind of hit a little stumble and they had some injury issues themselves, but Brock Purdy, terrible game yesterday. I think 70-some passing yards, and albeit against a really good defense in Cleveland, but you could look at them and say, do they have a firm identity? Yeah, you could argue, yes. But when you look at the Lions, like it feels like this is who they are. It doesn't feel like an accident. It doesn't feel like, oh yeah, they had the one game, right? Where they played, had just everything fell together today for them, right? It's been now, 6 games this year, 5 out of the 6, and 13 out of the last 16. I know, I hate going back to last year because it's a lot of new cast and characters, but
not that many new guys.
No, but with the team though, right? Like this is something that they've been trying to build, and it finally feels like it's stable and it's sustainable and impressive with, they're not even playing at full strength. And even yesterday, talking to some offensive guys, they were like, yeah, I'm glad that we're on the game, man. Defense played great, but man, we got to get a lot better, right? And I think it's that type of attitude that good teams have where you're not satisfied, right? You want to go out there, you want to play a perfect game, you want to be great. And so that's why I say, I don't even know if we've seen this team's full potential yet. And that's probably the scary part for me is when they do have a full roster, when they do have a loaded roster, what are they going to look like then? I think it's only going to continue to get better, John.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that people had talked about is Baker Mayfield missed some open throws, and he did. But you also got to give credit to a defense that maybe they're forcing him. They only came away with 1 sack, but there was a number of pressures on Baker Mayfield. Plus what they saw on film, he knew he was going to have to get the ball and get it out of his hands. When you have that type of mindset as a quarterback, sometimes you're throwing the ball before you're ready. Sometimes in the back of your mind, you're thinking, am I going to get hit while I'm throwing this ball? You may sail 1 or 2. And for this defense to have an effect on a quarterback like that, where there were some guys that were open and Baker Mayfield misfired, there were some drops, but you have guys in the secondary that are willing to, Tracy Walker to lay the wood. and again, that is that identity that is continuing to build for this Lions team. But when the defense is able to go out there, and anytime you only allow 2 field goals in a game, that's a huge win for the defense. But anytime you're able to do that when they have weapons like a Chris Godwin or like a Mike Evans, and you're not allowing that team to get in the end zone, that's a huge statement.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the coaching start to reflect that as well, right? Dan Campbell yesterday. Yeah, let's just punt it, man. Let's pin them deep, let our defense play, right? I know you missed a field goal, but hey, let's try it, man. Let's try to get 3 points on the board.
Trying to steal extra possessions.
It doesn't feel like you're a desperate team where it's like, man, we got to be aggressive. We got to score every drive or else bad things happen, right? You don't see that from this team right now. And I think a lot of that is just the way the players are playing, man. You give your coach confidence to go out there and just call a good game, right? All right, hey, we didn't get it done. Let's punt it away, right? The last drive, I mean, you bled off almost 7 minutes of time there in the fourth quarter. And then, hey, let's punt it away, man. Like you don't have the killer instinct to say, man, I really want to finish this thing with the ball in our hands. No, let's pin them deep and let our defense keep playing. You pin them down to the 2-yard line and, just completely suffocate Tampa Bay after that. Just an all around, I mean, good team game, right? And with a lot of great individual performances. Amon-Ra, I mean, my goodness, 12 catches.
Yeah, 120 yards.
120 yards. Obviously, the huge touch. I think that was a 3rd and 13 too.
Yeah,
in the red zone there, which was phenomenal. Jameson, man, good to see him. You feel like he needed one of those just to kind of get the weight of the world off his shoulders, right? The drop last week, I think it was 2 plays before that. Goff having the confidence in him to get it right back to him, and he makes a big play. Defensively, I mean, Anzalone, man, I think that was the best game I've seen him play. It seemed like every run play, he was in the backfield, and
he's been a beast.
He was going sideline to sideline. He was making plays. Jack Campbell, his most productive game probably that we've seen, had a couple nice hits as well, and just all across the board. It looks like a hungry team to me, John. That's what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of pit bulls that haven't eaten in a freaking week, man. Like they go out there on game day and that's their time to eat, and they look like they're having fun doing it too, which you get the confidence riding high, man. Like, anything can happen. And look, I'll say, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't think anybody expects them to go 16-1, right? We know that it's the NFL. It happened this weekend with San Fran. It happened with Philly. They're 2 really good football teams too. Probably going to happen to the Lions at some point where you're going to have maybe an off game or 2. But the good part is, you've got cushion now. You've got padding. You've got a 5-1 record to say, hey, when the bad week does come, we can sustain it, man. We're not going to be in full press mode because, we lost a game, right? And now we got to win 9 out of the last 10 to do anything, right? You're not in that mode right now. You've built yourself enough cushion early in the season to be able to sustain some of those blows that are eventually going to come at some point this year. But it's just kind of weird feeling, man. Like, I don't think us Lions fans have ever felt like this. And it's uncomfortable to still talk about, Super Bowl contenders, NFC contenders. And you look around the NFL and you're like, why not? Like, I'm trying to find a reason why we can't. And it's kind of the reason right now. It's probably the same reason that a lot of the top teams have. Well, if we sustain some, horrific injuries and heaven forbid, lose this guy or that guy, like, that's kind of the only thing I'm thinking right now that can slow these guys down. They just seem to be on a roll right now. And this week's, I know we'll get into it more later in the week. This week's going to be a challenge. Baltimore always is. But the way this team is playing right now, I cannot find a reason why they can't be able to sustain the success.
Well, we will talk about that a little bit more later in the week because it is repeatable. It's good defense. It's protecting the ball, good quarterback play, guys stepping up when they're called upon. But again, 5-1. Tied for the best record with 4 other teams in the NFL, 3 of them in the NFC, and that is San Francisco, Philly, and obviously Detroit. So not only are you talking about a possible Super Bowl contender, but even getting there, it's can you possibly end up with that number 1 seed? We have no idea how the rest of the season will play out, but stay with us because we're going to take you through the rest of the season, and we'll let you know as we get closer to game time at the end of the week what we're hearing from injuries. TJ will be down at Allen Park. He'll give us an insight as to what's going on down there. So make sure you stay tuned in and download Necessary Roughness every single week.